Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Monday, the 20th of June. Well, we've got a lot to report and there's a lot to get through, so let's get on to this news. And it is a wonderful day out here in sunny Queensland and especially in Brisbane. From where we are reporting, currently it is 15 degrees and sunny. So it is good to see that that cold front has sort of passed. But it's still quite chilly out here because hey, it is winter and it is June, the 20th of June, 2 days away from the shortest day of the year. So do you know that 22nd June is the shortest day of the year on this part of the world, and 22nd December is the longest day, meaning the sunshine will be the most on that day and the least on the 22nd. So the distance between sunrise and sunset is the shortest on the 22nd of June in this part of the hemisphere. Well, right now, let's get on with the news for today. And the first news that's making, of course, there's so many kinds of investments that people can make these days, properties, cash, shares, and everything. And all this about the cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, etc. So what's happening to Bitcoin? Let's take a look.
The headaches from Bitcoin investors have continued over the weekend.
The value plunged below $20,000 for the first time since 2020. In a fresh sign, the sell-off is deepening. Chloe White is the Managing Director of crypto asset advisor Genesis Block, and she joins me now. Thank you, Chloe White, for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, we're seeing some of these cryptocurrency funds being frozen to stop withdrawals as the value goes down by around 30%. Why is the value of Bitcoin falling so rapidly?
There are two reasons for this. The first points to weakness in the macroeconomy more broadly. There have been sell-offs in a lot of financial assets over the last month, and it's not yet clear whether the US and other countries may be heading into a technical recession, but we certainly do know that that economic weakness is causing sell-offs in a number of assets. But also within the crypto asset sector itself, there has been quite a bit of weakness and prices have been falling since the collapse of a popular cryptocurrency project about a month ago.
And the question that everybody always asks, have we seen the bottom yet?
I think that a lot of analysts are pointing to the fact that we may be nearing a bottom. My read of the market is that we seem to be in a capitulation zone. Obviously, it is possible that prices could fall further, and no one has a crystal ball, so we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's certainly anyone's guess at the moment, but when it does get to the bottom, do you think that it potentially is going to be a slow recovery in this area?
I am personally expecting a slow recovery, I think pointing to those two factors that I mentioned, but particularly the macroeconomic environment that we're now facing. I don't see a quick solution to that.
And we've heard as well that some crypto groups are posting links to counselling hotlines because there are people out there that are losing their savings. What should investors do at the moment and what risks should they be aware of?
I think investors should stick to their long-term plans. For me personally, I do only invest for the long term. I'm not a day trader. I have a day job, which would make it too difficult for me to speculate day to day. So if you do have a long-term plan, I think at times of volatility, it's important to go and review what your plan is. And if you don't understand the investments that you have made, I think it is really important to go and speak to an expert. Bear markets are a really good time to learn and get educated. So I would suggest, getting a bit of that education if you feel that that's something that you're missing over the coming year at least. And it's also a good time to think about for venture capitalists where they might want to allocate capital now that we're no longer in a founder's market.
There you are. Bitcoin takes another plunge, and as for many people, they still like to stick to the traditional forms of investment, their investments like in properties where they can actually go and physically see, touch and feel the tangible asset as they reckon. Well, right now it's time to move on and take a look around the nation and going state by state. Let's begin by Queensland, where $35 billion for rail infrastructure has been pledged.
Laying the foundations for Tuesday's state budget and celebrating a Cross-River Rail milestone. The first 50 metres of tracks laid in the snaking corridors that will transport people through Brisbane by 2025.
We are now putting rail tracks into the 5.9 kilometre twin tunnels.
And putting $3.5 billion from the coming budget into rail projects.
Like the light rail on the Gold Coast, Currabee to Beenleigh rail upgrade, Sunshine Rail duplication and 3 new stations on the Gold Coast.
And improved safety measures for the underground stations.
Automatic doors on platforms so that people are physically unable to fall on the tracks.
The Treasurer says the budget's on track to continue the state's COVID economic recovery plan and to deliver $50 billion of capital works over 4 years.
And we'll say more about that on Tuesday.
He insists the government's on the right track too, despite comments from former Premier Peter Beattie today, urging the government not to rest on their laurels.
Peter Beattie's entitled to his views. I'm delivering my 3rd budget on Tuesday, let me say this, and I look forward to delivering at least another 6.
The Premier is yet to speak publicly about the Crime and Corruption Commission's probe into the influence of lobbyists in Queensland and its suggestion in a report on Friday that the risk of corruption has intensified inside the state government amid a surge in lobbying.
It's now day 3. What has been raised is the biggest development of the integrity crisis we have seen to date, and yet we haven't seen the Premier.
But the government insists it has nothing to hide.
The integrity institutions in Queensland are doing their job. That's what we've said all along. We support them, we fund them, and we'll look at what the CCC has to do, and we'll also have a look at what Peter Coldrake has to say.
In a different probe into the government and what's happening below the surface. Toby Jers-Lewis.
And that's good news about the infrastructure there, because yes, coming on to the Olympics as well, there will be a lot of movement of people, and we'll try and get as many cars off the road and many people into public transport. But they will only be possible if all the stations and all the locations are very, very feasibly accessible, where people can easily get to and fro, and the timing as well will play a big factor, the timing of the public transport as well. Well, right now, let's go to the top end, to Darwin.
Do you feel a tickle in your throat? Everything in this room is made with human hair.
Sweet dreams and gut reactions is essentially wanting to open conversations about medical things that have been for a lot of people and are for a lot of people very difficult to talk about.
For this Melbourne-based artist, the use of human hair speaks to our complex relationship with our bodies, our health and our mortality.
We're absolutely thrilled to invite Pam back into the program for this year and to have Pam visiting from Victoria.
The centrepiece of this exhibition in Darwin is the mohair suit, made from the world's only moustache hair fabric, donated by Movember participants from around the country. On the theme of men's health, the suit's lining has snippets of conversation between the artist and her late husband during his battle with prostate cancer.
Cancer wasn't something that he wanted to talk about, and the possibility of dying wasn't something that he wanted to talk about. So it was very difficult to kind of know how much I could push things to have those conversations, because I felt I needed to have those conversations.
For a lot of men, having conversations about our health can be a lot like pulling hair from a drain. Horrifying. The work here, contributed to by hundreds of men, is about having those conversations openly, even if it is a bit gross.
If I can kickstart some of those conversations about our mortality through this exhibition, I mean, that's kind of really what I'm on about.
Shedding light on some uncomfortable truths. Ollie Chaseling.
And of course, truths are at the best of times painful, but they are the truth. And as was mentioned, that even though it might look a little bit gross, but it's a very, very strong way of getting that message out there into the community. Well, right now, from Darwin, let's go to Melbourne.
A small delicacy that costs more than an iceberg lettuce. But despite the price, fans of truffles say there's many reasons to keep coming back for more.
They're very earthy, they've got a very strong potent flavour, and they're very rare.
At Melbourne's Truffle Festival, there was no shortage of ways to experience the delights of the rare fungi.
Vietnamese bao, pasta, truffle cocktails behind you.
In ancient times, truffle was once thought to grow where lightning strikes the ground. Nowadays, dogs are used to hunt them in Victoria.
A well-trained dog will mark the truffle, and then I'll uncover the truffle and put my nose in the hole. There's a lot of bum up in truffle hunting.
Truffles only grow over 3 months a year and under 2 types of tree, but to produce them takes a lot of patience.
It takes a minimum of 4 years, 4 or 5 years, then you run the dog over or the pig over to hopefully harvest the truffle.
1 kilo can cost around $3,000, but advocates say the price isn't as bad as it seems.
If you're at home with just 4 or half a dozen friends over for dinner, you'll spend less on truffle than you would on 2 or 3 bottles of wine.
Well, this little fungus is small and hard to find. A piece this size costs around $500. But for those who come out here today to grab a bite, they say it's worth the wait and the price tag.
We love truffle as a family because we love the taste.
I just love truffle. I can't even tell you why, but I just love it.
I waited about half an hour. I got lucky. I got the last one. They found one on the toasty that they hadn't sold yet.
It's an opportunity to indulge in a special treat. Roseanne Maloney, ABC News.
The trouble that people will go for truffle. Well, there you go. It's wonderful to see that happening right there in Melbourne. And well, you have now seen the way that they are grown and how they are made available as well. So another commodity, another thing that is coming now to the surface, and of course it's becoming more, people are becoming more and more aware of that. Now, staying in Victoria, the government announces $3 billion overall.
Before her shift working at a busy Victorian emergency department, Kim Gallagher has to steel herself for what lies ahead.
There is always an element of anxiety, especially I think when there's some days where you know there hasn't been anyone on the night before.
She works as a mental health nurse, and at the moment her service and others are struggling to fill mental health job vacancies. People in deep distress are waiting up to 12 hours to be seen, and then there's nowhere to refer them for further help.
We see all of their trauma. They talk to us about all of their worst experiences. And then we have to say, I'm sorry, I don't have the services to be able to give you. And that's the bit that gets me. That's the bit that I get angry about and upset about.
The Victorian government is overhauling the state's mental health system as a result of the 2019 Royal Commission.
We will implement every one of the findings.
But many senior staff have left the front line to move into non-clinical roles associated with the recommendation rollout, and often their former positions are lying vacant.
Look, the system is really under a lot of strain. We've had such increases in mental health presentations throughout COVID. There's also been a general shortage in mental health staff for the last 10 years.
Those who remain are burnt out and are about to get their first pay rise in 3 years, despite general nurses getting one in 2020.
We look after the patients, but who's advocating for us? Who's looking out for the nurses?
Most in the sector agree that Victoria is on track to create a world-class mental health system. But there are concerns that without a viable workforce, all the changes might count for naught.
You can't have a mental health system without staff, and I would say that you can't have a mental health system that serves the needs of people accessing it without happy and healthy staff.
In a statement, Minister James Merlino said the reforms won't come without challenges, but the government is investing in training opportunities and initiatives like Free TAFE to build the mental health workforce. Kim's hoping those workers will join her soon. Jessica Longbottom, ABC News.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, well, there you are. Right now, let's go to New South Wales.
The government had promised there would be measures to address housing affordability in Tuesday's budget. And today it's announced a shared equity scheme starting in January. Under the plan, the government would make a contribution to a person's housing deposit in return for equity in the property. The government share would be 40% for a new build and 30% for existing homes. This will be a trial and only available to first home buyers who are nurses, teachers or police. or somebody who is single and aged over 50, or a single parent with children under the age of 18. They must have at least 2% of the deposit and not earn more than $90,000 a year. For couples, it would be a combined gross income of less than $120,000, and the property can't cost more than $950,000. The government would retrieve its equity when the owners decide to sell. The federal government has indicated it's likely to introduce a similar scheme, and the state government anticipates that they'd work alongside each other. The state government is offering 3,000 people the option a year. So this isn't broad sweeping reform, but the government insists it's just one aspect of its housing affordability package. More will be revealed in the budget, and it's set to include changes to stamp duty.
That is something which we talked about in one of our real estate updates. Well, let's take a look at how that would be shaping. We'll keep you update on that. Right now, staying on New South Wales, here's this next report, which is going to introduce performance.
He's flagged his desire to be known as the Education Premier, and today Dominic Perrottet confirmed plans for further reforms to schooling, with a proposal to introduce performance-based pay for teachers.
For those teachers who excel and drive better results for our kids, they should be rewarded, not penalised.
The plan intends to modernise the teaching profession, which the Premier argues hasn't been reformed in years because of too many vested interests. But just how teacher performance will be measured under the plan is unclear.
It seems to be the only profession where we don't reward performance. I think we need to look at new ways of doing things. I want to have the best teachers in the profession.
Similar performance pay models overseas involve scoring teachers based on lesson observations and students' exam results. The New South Wales Teachers Federation has labelled the plan a gimmick based on outdated policy.
There have been inquiries, there have been global research studies, all of which show it doesn't work.
The Teachers Federation says performance-based pay won't help address the state's teacher shortage. It's calling for a pay rise in line with inflation and will consider further strike action during a meeting with the Independent Education Union on Tuesday. The government also intends to boost before and after school activities and employ more administrative staff in schools to reduce teacher workloads.
We've needed an Education Premier for the last 12 years. They're coming to the table very late in the day.
The Education Minister says the government will look at refining the planned reforms over the coming weeks. Husni Shams, ABC News, Sydney.
Well, staying on New South Wales right now, let's look at those flood-prone locals who are still waiting for, their houses to be fixed or raised. So what's happening in that area?
Returning to a house gutted by floodwater is traumatic. Doing it twice in 5 years is almost too much to bear.
I can't stay. I can't, I just can't do this again. It's too hard. And, I have to make another plan, I don't want to sell my house to another family who's going to have to go through this.
Gemma Martin's Murwillumbah home was filled with water in 2017. She had to swim to safety. In February this year, she survived yet another flood. A wall used to chart her children's growth now doubles as a flood marker.
This is the floor, and here's our kitchen. It was catastrophic. Every single surface in this house was covered with probably about this much sludge and stinking flood water, contaminated flood water.
After the 2017 flood, Gemma inquired about the voluntary house raising scheme, a government grant to lift her house up on stilts and out of danger. Under the scheme, the state funds 2/3 of the cost of raising eligible homes above the flood level. In some cases, the program may recommend the government purchase the home so the owners can move to higher ground. Councils are responsible for applying to access the funds on behalf of homeowners. This year, the amount allocated for the entire state was around the $2 million mark. The Tweed Shire Mayor says this is nowhere near enough.
We think that we need a one-off contribution of around $300 million to try to get people out of the floodplain, and then ongoing around a $100 million mark.
Since the 2017 floods, only 2 homes in the whole Shire have been razed under the scheme. In this street alone, 6 owners want their houses lifted, but they say bureaucracy is holding them up and it's putting their lives at risk. 5 years after she first expressed interest, Gemma is still waiting to hear if she'll get any financial help.
We need some action and we need some answers because we are really stuck in limbo at the moment.
We're stuck in the middle right now, and I hope that some action is taken because if there is a scheme, the scheme is one which the local Shire Council has to apply on behalf of the affected, people, owners. So maybe that's taking a little bit longer. Right now, we go to South Australia before we go to our daily India report.
It's music to this musician's ears.
Whether you are prepared to pay the toll.
Nathan May was forced to find other work during COVID shutdowns, but hopes today's announcement will help more pubs and clubs bring back live music.
This will involve the whole fighting for a spot and, get more musos to start playing again.
The government is delivering an election promise, with thousands of dollars available for promoters, venues and other businesses.
The rates that have been set through the grant program ensures that artists are being paid properly, but it also offsets the costs of venues getting artists into those venues.
A new insurance-style scheme will help venues if an event is scrapped because of new COVID restrictions. And the Royal Adelaide Show will receive $500,000 to put on live music for the first time in 20 years.
We want the winter months and the spring months in Adelaide and South Australia to be a hotbed of live music activity for both musos and venues to give them a bit of a boost.
There'll also be free phone counselling, with $250,000 put towards supporting those who work in the live music industry after a tumultuous 2 years. But for now, South Australians are being urged to get off the couch.
If you've bought a ticket, show up if you're not feeling unwell. Get behind local songwriters, buy albums, go to music festivals, go to pubs where live music's playing.
The industry grants are available from today. Shari Hams, ABC News, Adelaide.
And that beautiful news coming there from Adelaide. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will unveil major projects in Gujarat on 17th and 18th of June. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Gujarat state on 17th and 18th of June. He will visit and inaugurate the redeveloped temple of Sri Kalika Mata at Pavagadh Hill, which will be followed by his visit to Virasat One. Beneficiaries of various schemes of the government will participate in Gujarat Gaurav Abhiyan at Vadodara. Prime Minister will also dedicate and lay the foundation stone of various railway projects worth over 16,000 crore rupees. These include a dedication to the nation of 357 kilometers long New Palanpur to Mother section of dedicated freight corridor, gorge conversion of 166 kilometers long Ahmedabad to Botad section, electrification of 81 kilometers long Palanpur to Mitha section, among others. With a focus on improving maternal and child health, Prime Minister will launch the Mukhyamantri Matru Shakti Yojana, which will have an outlay of 800 crore rupees. Under the scheme, pregnant and lactating mothers will be given 2 kgs of chickpeas, 1 kg of tur dal and 1 kg of edible oil free of cost from Anganwadi centres every month. Prime Minister will also disburse around 120 crore rupees towards Poshan Sudha Yojana. Indian Railways IT and Communications Minister Ashwini Vaishnav says that India will get full-fledged 5G services by March 2023. Indian Minister for Communications Ashwini Vaishnav has said that India will get full-fledged 5G services by March 2023. He said that the auction of the 5G spectrum will be completed by July end. He said, quote, "Telecom is the primary source of digital consumption and it is very important to bring trusted solutions in telecom. India has its own stack of 4G like radio, equipment and handset. 4G is ready to deploy in the field and 5G is ready in the lab. and 5G will be ready to deploy in March 2023, end quote. This comes in the backdrop of the Indian cabinet approving proposals for 5G spectrum auctions in India. India-Japan financial dialogue has been escalated to the ministerial level and was held in New Delhi. Masato Kanda, Japanese Vice Minister of Finance for International Affairs, and Mr. Ajay Seth, Secretary of Department of Economic Affairs at the Ministry of Finance, held the first India-Japan finance dialogue in New Delhi on June 16th. In view of the growing importance of India-Japan relations in recent years, the dialogue on India-Japan financial cooperation, which had been held at the level of Deputy Director Generals, was upgraded to the level of Vice Minister and Secretary. The participants exchanged their views on the macroeconomic situation, financial system, financial digitalization, and investment environment in both countries. They confirmed that both sides will continue to work closely together as they hold presidencies of G20 and G7 next year. The participants, including private financial institutions, also discussed various financial regulation issues towards further expansion of investment in India. India will support creating a secondary steel sector in the country. India's Union Minister of Steel, Ramchandra Prasad Singh, at an event on June 16th, emphasized the need of supporting and providing the right ecosystem for the secondary steel sector in India. He said that there should be a target of achieving 300 million tons of steel capacity by the year 2030. This was an interaction meet to understand the challenges faced by the secondary steel sector and steel consumers of Gujarat Steel, held at Surat in the state of Gujarat. The minister stressed that all these targets can be achieved only with the active participation of secondary steel producers and steel consumers. The Indian state of Andhra Pradesh has tied up with the education technology platform Byju's. Now government school children from classes 8th to 10th will get a tablet. The government of Andhra Pradesh has announced that it has signed a memorandum of understanding with EdTech major Byju's to help draft the curriculum for government school students from class 4 to class 10. Andhra State Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy said that Byju's online courses will be integrated into the Andhra school education system, and students from class 8 to 10th will all be given tablets to enhance digital learning. The aim, the Chief Minister said, is to ensure that government school training is equal to CBSE training by 2025 and that students are trained for 2025 CBSE board exams. US President Joe Biden has nominated Indian-American security expert to top Pentagon post. US President Joe Biden has nominated security expert Radha Iyengar Plumb to the post of Deputy Under-Secretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. She is the latest Indian American to be named for a key position. Currently serving as the Chief of Staff to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Radha Plumb was nominated for the top Pentagon position on June 15th. Prior to her appointment as Chief of Staff, Ms. Plumb was the Director of Research and Insights for Trust and Safety at Google, leading their cross-functional teams on business analytics, data science and technical research. She has also previously served as the Global Head of Policy Analysis at Facebook, where she focused on high-risk, high-harm safety and critical international security issues. Indian badminton player Etis Pronoy has stormed into the quarterfinals of Indonesia Open. One of the heroes of India's Thomas Cup triumph, Etis Pronoy, continued his rich vein of form as he stormed into the quarterfinals of the Indonesia Open Super 1000 tournament with a straight game win over Hong Kong's Long Angus on June 16th. The 29-year-old from Kerala, who is desperately looking to break his 5-year title drought, dished out another impressive performance to outwit Long with 21-11, 21-18 in a second-round match that lasted 41 minutes. The Election Commission of India has released notifications on the upcoming 16th presidential election. The Election Commission of India issued a Gazette notification for the 16th presidential election. With this, the process to file nominations for the July 18th election has begun. The nominations can be filed till June 29th and the scrutiny of the papers will be held on June 30th, while the votes will be counted on July 21st. The term of President Ramnath Kovind is coming to an end on July 24th. As per Article 54, the President is elected by the members of the Electoral College consisting of elected members of both houses of Parliament and elected members of the legislative assemblies of all states, including the National Capital Territory of Delhi and the Union Territory of Puducherry. The Government of India has approved additional central government assistance of over nearly $180 million to drought-affected Rajasthan and Nagaland states. The Government of India has approved additional central assistance of over 1,043 crore rupees under the National Disaster Response Fund to Rajasthan and Nagaland, which were affected by drought from 2021 to 2022. The high-level committee under the chairmanship of Home Minister Amit Shah has approved around 1,004 crore rupees for Rajasthan and over 39 crore rupees for Nagaland. This additional assistance is over and above the funds released by the centre to the states in the State Disaster Response Funds. During 2021 to 2022, the Modi government released 17,747 crore rupees to 28 states in their SDRFs and 7,342 crore rupees to 11 states from the NDRF. Actor Akshay Kumar and Anand L. Rai reveal a motion poster of Raksha Bandhan ahead of the August 11 release.
तेरे साथ हूँ मैं
Theatres in August 2022, the makers of the film launched the first motion poster on June 16th. Produced by Color Yellow Productions, Z Studios and Cape of Good Films, Raksha Bandhan stars Akshay Kumar and Bhumi Pednekar opposite each other. The film also stars Neeraj Sood, Seema Pava, Sadia Khatib, Abhilash Thapliyal, Deepika Khanna, Smriti Shrikant and Sahajmeen Kaur. The family drama is said to be an emotional roller coaster that will embody the love between siblings. In breaking news today, with weak global markets and concerning foreign outflows, BSE Sensex ended 135 points lower, closing at 51,360.42, while NSE Nifty slipped below 15,300 points to close at 15,293.50. Synchronized global monetary tightening and fears of economic slowdown has dominated the market trends in Asian markets of Tokyo, Seoul and Shanghai. Some of the stocks at Nifty 50 saw 6 to 41% fall in their values. As many as 8 stocks have cumulatively wiped out 12.76 lakh crore rupees of investor wealth. These stocks are majorly from technology, finance or banking industry and have big weights in the industry. That's all in today's bulletin.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's about all in this segment. Don't forget that we are back tomorrow with more news. And there's been so much happening in the weekend. We had the Kairali function, we had the QSMA, the annual concert and the IGM, and of course the International Day of Yoga and much, much more. We'll try and bring you some glimpses of those functions and events by tomorrow. So right now, it's goodbye from this segment. We will see you all tomorrow.